Peter. Uh, okay, here they come. All right. And we'll just sort of see, let them introduce themselves, as everybody comes in. And good morning. How are you?
Hello, hello. It's a great pleasure to see you. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having us.
So far, so good. And of course, we're in Seattle, and young people, students from around the world, visitors from around the world. And we're one of the very few in Seattle, five-star museums. And we're not that big, but on the other hand, here we are,
That's amazing.
and we didn't know that. And one day we had some visitors. I forget where they came from, and they came in, and we said, "Well, we always said, how did you find us, right?" And they said, "Well, we looked at TripAdvisor, and we don't charge anybody anything because we feel talking about we're a museum about social justice, right? So we feel that needs to be free, So we have coffee and we bake things, and we invite people to come in and students to study here. So we're free, and they said, "Well, you're a five-star museum," and we thought, "Well, we'll check it out, right?" And so we checked it out to make sure we really were a five-star museum, and sure enough, there we were. Then they told us, "Well, you were the only five-star museum." Well, I'm not convinced of that, but hey, even being one of the few is still a good thing. So we are very motivated because our visitors are from everywhere. They are from, we still got 4 more minutes. They are literally from China, from Africa. I mean, our students are from everywhere around the world. So this gives us a real good opportunity as we sit here in the foyer. We have a welcome lounge, we have a documentary lounge, we have a jukebox dance floor, we have a meditation room, and of course, a museum. And so we have lots of opportunities. And one of the things that we're doing, Olga, actually, is we are opening up traveling museums. That means that means a little table, a threefold, and the Unity Museum of Michigan, wherever you live, right? And this is what we do. We're all about social justice. And you can then promote social justice in either in like the one in Cameroon, they're taking it to the flea market in Buffalo, New York. They're waiting for UN days, right? United Nation. Let me just or in the winter, libraries and high schools and universities and so on. So our traveling Unity Museum has really sort of also become a come and sit down. Let's not get into conversations on that. And so the idea, it's really about the idea, because I call it a traveling museum, but it's really a trunk museum. Here in Washington State, now we're a member of the International Alliance of Museums, and of course the Washington State Museum Association. And one year, the Greek Museum won the award. So I went over and I congratulated them. And I said, that's wonderful. Where in Washington are you? I'd like to come visit you. And they said, oh, no, we don't have any money for Bricket to rent anything. We just have a traveling museum. We go to schools and this and that. And I thought, what a great idea. And instantly I said, the world. Right, we should have unity museums talk about social justice and human rights in the world. And the nice thing is, when you come out with a museum, people take a little bit more a professional approach towards it. And then when you can afford it, I always say, what's the best location for a unity museum, regardless where it's across a college or university, next to the coffee shop. And if all you can afford is upstairs, that's cool. If you can afford downstairs, it's even better. But we know for a fact that's the best place, is where the students come and go, right? So I want you to even think about, wow, maybe we should also have in mind. What's happening?
Like he's helping us to broadcast, and I think that's why
Okay.
we're having some.
Yeah, maybe if Peter mute his microphone, we would be. Peter, if you can. That's fine,
Okay.
but you need to mute your Zoom because we hear you.
So far, so good. So, well, we're getting in one more minute to go. And is there anything that you would like to bring to the table before we go into what we call official gear? And I just
we're
wanted to
just
share.
very happy to be here today. It's an amazing idea, and thank you so much for sharing. It's such a needed concept today. Unity, justice, all those topics are the topics we don't talk about enough. And thank you so much for having us. That's what we're all about. So we're very happy to be here.
Yeah, because here we are in different places in the world, in little cities and little neighborhoods, and we feel we're just such a small voice that we wonder if there's really ever a way that we can actually collectively bring about a change. But it is noontime. So why don't I take a couple of minutes now to just introduce the idea of human rights and why we're celebrating it. So our Unity Museum is sponsoring it because one of the projects that we have under it is called Uniting Youth for World Peace. And that was really the idea of one of our students. They said, well, other than just studying in our curriculum, we like to get the youth around the world together. And we formed this group project underneath the Unity Museum, Uniting Youth for World Peace. And so initially, our student was actually a Japanese student. And we just she got ready, posted it on Facebook, but we got very quickly feedback. They said, well, Gumbaya, what are your service projects? Don't just announce everybody come in a big hug, right? How exactly do we do that? So we added 10 service projects. And then with that, because I'd been a certified human rights consultant about 4 months ago, and so then I began to connect with other human rights consultants. And once we went live with our Uniting Youth, all of a sudden Cameroon comes in. Oh, we like number 7. Now, I mean, Rwanda comes in, we like number 7, and somebody else comes in, we want number 4. And I look, okay, here we go. Okay, somebody else is coming in. And so, welcome there. Nice to meet you. Let us know for a minute, where are you coming from, Christopher? What city are you streaming from? You have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Right now I'm from Turkey, but I'm originally from Canada.
Ah, Turkey. Well, welcome, Turkey. I've got a lot of good friends, and especially in Edirne, in Constantinople. So, well, welcome. Nice to see what I call friends, right? We're all friends under the common goal. Anyway, so we, under the museum, we started then this United Youth for World Peace. And one of the offerings that we have been sponsoring has been to become a consultant for human rights. And so right now we have sponsored it whilst they still had sales, but I can't be doing that forever because everything is free here. And as it is a little place, they need to, okay, here we go. Let's see. I think for a minute, let some of the people come in and introduce themselves, okay? And Carolina, okay. Carolina, introduce yourself and let us know what country or city you're streaming from. I think she's working it. And let's see when she lights up. Let us know once you unmute yourself, Carolina, to say hello.
Hello.
There you go.
Hello.
And what country are you coming from?
I'm coming from the Czech Republic.
Isn't this what this is all about today? So we'll just say quickly. So with us here are in Seattle. And then Olga, quickly say where you are.
I'm in Michigan, USA.
And okay, let's go around the room.
Yeah, Tali, Los Angeles.
Where? Los Angeles. Okay. Peter? Peter? Okay. Officially from Canada. Anyway, right now we are from Bulgaria and also from Turkey, right? So we certainly are sort of starting to come together from a variety of places. Now, let's say Human Rights Day, December 10th, right? Well, we all know it's December 10th, and I don't know if any of you have been to the UN building in New York. I have. It's an amazing building. I happen to be a member of the Baha'i community. And next door, we have an 8-story building. So I was a guest there, and they gave me a tour of the United Nations building. And it was felt really emotionally overwhelming, because this was just where the world met, and where the world writes its white papers and makes its recommendation, and consultation starts. But it wasn't that easy, because as we know, after World War I, we had the League of Nations and tried that for a while, and then we had, of course, out of that came then World War II, and we have now United Nations. And as a member of my community, I like to think that we are building that yellow brick road towards a World Federation, because we have too many limitations still in votes on the floor, shall I call it that? Those articles, 30 articles, right, of human rights. Every country should not have anybody. Yeah, we're all born with it. And, to the struggle internationally, okay, let me just see. And internationally, why are we struggling to get our birthright recognized? But anyway, December 10th finally happened. And this formal establishment of Human Rights Day occurred on what? The 317th. Imagine that. United Nations. It took 317 plenary meetings of the General Assembly on December 4th, 1950. So 48 is when it happened, but it didn't happen until 300 some meetings, right? And not in 48, but in 1950. So everybody had to get over the shock and say, what are we going to do about this? Yeah, this is not kumbaya, just this country or that country, right? This is a global scenario. And of course, and a lot of events go with it. You know, there are cultural events, there are high-level political conferences around the world and meetings. So cultural events, I would call this a cultural event. Would you agree? And then we have exhibitions. Well, our Unity Museum certainly has year-round cultural exhibitions, simply because we are about social justice. And that's all we talk about is climate, is women's issues, our race issues, communication hindrances, and so on, right? So for us, it's around the clock, right? And then they also, besides the traditionally on December 10th, the 5-yearly United Nations Prize is the field of human rights and Nobel Prizes, right? So the international recognition for outstanding work is something that slowly, I call it the yellow brick road, where we're not only recognizing outstanding organizations, outstanding individuals, outstanding efforts that have been made. And so the resolution, in case you wonder what it was called, is 423B meaning 5, right? So I feel that it's interesting that when the General Assembly actually adopted the declaration, with 48 states in favor and 8 abstentions, I got, what? How can you abstain? Oh, I'm going to think about this. I'm not sure if I like it. And it shows you the struggle that it was. I know I'm telling you things you already know, but because we might be sharing this with other students or communities that may not be aware. So with 8 abstentions, it was proclaimed as a common standard of achievement for all people in all nations, towards which individuals, there you go, that's what we are, individuals, and society should strive by progressive measures, national and international, to secure their universal and effective recognition and observance. And that's what we're doing today. It's an international observance, right? So therefore, this measure was received with both advocates and critics alike as being more declarative than legislative, more suggestive than binding. This is the problem, isn't it? It's still suggestive rather than binding. Whereas if we work our way into a world federation, that would make it binding. And that would be a little bit more complex. And so, the 60th anniversary of the Declaration occurred on December 10th in 2008, right? And it seems not that long ago. And the United States, the UN Secretary General launched a year-long campaign. And I remember it in 2008. And for you, that's, forever ago. For somebody like me, it feels, like it was yesterday. But then on December 9th, 2001, President George Bush, right, made a presidential proclamation that Human Rights Week began. And so we have it a week. So we don't just have a day like today, right? But we have a week of that. So, and I can then go on, and I won't bore you with it, but I have here a historical rundown, some of the accomplishments that, for instance, certain years occurred. And one of them is in 1979, where in Taiwan, the Xi Ming-Tai organization, a human rights campaign, led ultimately to responsibility, accountability, and of course imprisonment. In 1983, President Alfonso of Argentina decided to assume office in 83, ending the military dictatorship. So you see, so slowly the human rights began to move forward. Then in 2004, the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, the UN Special Representative for Human Rights Defenders, and the African Union Commission on Human People's Rights issues a joint communique in which they commended the European Union for its recent adoption of a set of guidelines for protecting human rights and defenders. You know, and urge the world, other regions to take similar steps in that direction. You know, I remember when United Nations, when it first started, there were the World Health Organization and many organizations, such our Unity Museum is a chapter of United Nations. Okay, we have UN status here, and our Unity traveling museums all have that same status. But I remember it was mostly to recognize the organizations. But then, and I don't know if you remember when they had the first Earth Summit, were some of you around and were you part of that, where United Nations decided it wasn't enough to just have binding health or human rights organizations, but they wanted to get the leaders and presidents of the world to come together. And they did. And that was for the first times where really the United Nations was able, in 48, where they were able to get the world leaders together. And it was really breathtaking. And they began to realize it wasn't just the grassroots, that the leaders of the various countries also needed to take responsibility, because they were really overseeing the citizenry and human rights within their own boundaries, or the breaking of such, right? So my friend, Dr. Akavan, who's now a professor in Toronto. He was a young lawyer, graduated, and worked at United Nations. Then he went to Serbia, and he was there in the middle of that trauma. Then after that, they sent him to Rwanda. Well, it just got from bad to worse. So he served in Rwanda during that incredible, tragic genocide. And then he was appointed to The Hague as a judge. Now we're talking for a minute, and I want to bring this up here, because it's one thing to say, 30 articles of human rights violations or adopting or not binding, just, recommendations, but not binding. And so The Hague then became the first international criminal justice building. And he had the first case that he had to sit on was with Milosevic. And as you remember, the Serbian, he was, called in for trial, but he died prior to that. Just recently, they put an arrest out on Putin because of the kidnapping of children from Ukraine. Okay, and he said, "Come get me," right? And so therefore, it is a system that is accountable, but that is still in its infancy, because sooner or later, as we evolve and as we get our global leadership in countries and individuals into more of a common ground, then I think, because without accountability, this is really very tough. And the problem is, look, what are we looking at right now? You're looking at, let's call it COVID. You're looking at health disasters, global. You're looking at wars, global. You're looking at climate, global issues. And you're looking at breakdown of communication, news versus fake news, where other countries are interfering with international elections, right? So and then you're also looking at new alignments in the world, right? You're looking at Russia and China and India and Africa and Brazil and Venezuela and so on. So the earth, I always say the earth is about one country, and all of mankind, its citizens, right? And so United Nations and its many articles that we have them all here, and I think all of us are familiar with them. so I don't need to go through the 30 articles. But we have a table downstairs where hundreds of people every day go by, where we make sure that we make them aware of what those 30 articles are all about. And I feel I want to just briefly turn it over to some questions. And then maybe we then go into our first presentation, which would be Olga. And Olga is wondering if it's ever going to be her turn. Do we have
No,
any
no, it's
questions?
absolutely okay. I'm happy. I'm happy to listen.
So far, so good, everybody? We didn't burn any fires or any of that, and we're saying, yes, we can. Okay. We're the Nike, yes, we can citizens of the world, aren't we? And so Olga, I'm very excited to meet you and to listen to you. And we're going to ask for you to be formally introduced.
Sure. I'm gonna go ahead and introduce both of our speakers, and they will take turns. And
Say your name and
yeah. Okay, so my name is Maral Ataiba. I'm one of the volunteers of the Unity Museum helping here, and I'm also part of the Creative Society movement. And today, for me, it's a really wonderful day for me, like to bridge, to connect these two beautiful organizations, both are striving to unite the humanity. So yeah, let's do it. So first of all, let me introduce you guys to Olga Schmidt. Olga is the president of the Creative Society Project. She is the renowned speaker of international and national conferences. Our
go for it.
Yeah. The second speaker will be Tali Shruti. Tali is the Silicon Valley based professional with background in IT and climate research. And we're welcoming you to present us about the Creative Society project, and welcome you guys. And welcome to all of our guests here as well.
Yes, thank you so much. Greetings. It's truly an honor to be here today, especially on such an important day when, we're discussing the most important things: human rights, justice, equality, freedom, things that we shouldn't be discussing at this point, but we should all practice. So it's really a great pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. And today I will be talking about the Creative Society Project. And let's start from the beginning. What is the Creative Society? Creative Society is an international project that unites people from over 180 countries. And it's strictly on voluntary basis. So people from 180 countries, millions of people, are united on this platform in one goal. And the goal of the project is to transition in a legal and peaceful way, and within the shortest possible time, which is what we need, to a new format of society where human life is the main priority. And this is the Creative Society in a nutshell. And how did it begin? So Creative Society began over 10 years ago, over a decade ago, when volunteers from all over the world realized that there were problems in the world that we cannot solve individually. So we saw that we had global issues with climate, with ecology, with society, with economics. All those issues were going on in all the countries today, and we see them more and more, and they're definitely been escalating. So people started asking worldwide, it was the biggest survey of all time, started asking just people on the street, specialists, professionals, questions. And the question was what kind of a world do you want to live in? And so throughout that decade, millions of interviews from people from over 180 countries were compiled. And to our surprise at the time, all the answers were the same. All people wanted to live in peace and safety. They wanted to live in respect. Just what we were what we were discussing today, right? All people want the same thing. And on the contrary, they said, okay, but that's not how we live today. Why is it that people want one thing, but we live in a world that is totally different. So, based on those answers, the 8 pillars of the Creative Society were created, and we will discuss those a little bit later. Those are the pillars for the project. And it was just, I want to mention it again, how, and if you ask people today what kind of world you want to live in, I think we will all agree that we want the same thing, and that's why we're all gathered here today, is because we really truly want those things. We want justice, we want equality, we want peace, we want to make sure that there's no wars, no conflicts, none of that. Now, who is behind the Creative Society project? So as I mentioned, it's a platform for unification in one goal, which is the unification of humanity and building a new format of society where human life is the main priority. And it's millions of people that stand behind it, from different cultures, nationalities, religions, beliefs. Those people who want to change our world for the better and know how to do this lawfully and peacefully. And every day, of course, this number is growing, because once people know that there is a solution to the global issues, we can see that people are joining, which is amazing. Now, why is it today that we need the Creative Society worldwide? So in brief, the Creative Society format will provide solutions to all global crises, including, most importantly, the climate crisis. And it would ensure a future without wars, without conflicts, without violence, poverty, or hunger. It will finally enable our humanity to rapidly and peacefully advance to a new stage of evolutionary development, and of course guarantee every individual's safety, health, well-being, and an all-around development, which I believe is very important today. Now, also, let's talk about what benefits will each person get in the Creative Society. What else would it provide? So first of all, it will provide universal basic income for all people. Also, it will provide free healthcare and free high-quality education for all people. And what we talked already about today is Earth is, we're all residents of this Earth, so we should travel freely, visa-free, and have unrestricted movement worldwide, which is what Creative Society format would provide. Of course, cancellation of all debts and loans, including mortgages, and unlimited use of utilities for individuals. Also, no taxes for individuals, small and medium-sized businesses, and guaranteed economic stability with no inflation, economic default, or crisis. Stable, fixed prices worldwide. And most importantly, a safe world, again, without wars, conflicts, crime, and corruption. And, this is in a nutshell what Creative Society is and what it would provide. Now, all of this, since we've been studying all this for the past 10 years, we understand we've talked to different specialists, lawyers, doctors. We've had many interviews, probably hundreds, if not thousands of interviews with specialists from around the world in all fields. And we've studied history of what formats would work and what formats would not work in our society. And we understand that the Creative Society is the world where everyone would be comfortable and everyone could join and everyone would live well in. So that is, in a nutshell, is the Creative Society. Now, I know also we mentioned the 8 pillars of the Creative Society. And I believe that once people actually read these pillars, they understand that it is indeed the world that they want to live in. And maybe I can read the pillars, and maybe Tali can briefly talk about them, or we can, or Tali, if you would like to present them, that's fine, but maybe I will start with the first one. So there are 8 pillars of the Creative Society. And as we said, human life should be of the highest value. And human life is the first pillar. And it states that human life is the highest value. Life of any human has to be protected as one's own. The goal of society is to ensure and guarantee the value of each human's life. There is not and never can there be anything else more valuable than a human's life. If one human is valuable, then all humans are valuable. And I believe even this one pillar says a lot. Even if we implement, of course, we need all eight pillars, but imagine if we, in all spheres of our life, first and foremost, had this question in our mind: what if, in healthcare is close to me, I'm in the medical field. What are we sure that we want to put this medicine out there? Are we sure that we want to use this procedure? If we think, will it harm even one human being? Will it be beneficial to people? And if we just ask this one question in all the fields, if all our scientists, all our doctors, all our specialists work together to ensure that human life is of the main value and only worry about creating products, services, to make sure that we're all taken care of, I am sure that we would be in good hands and our society would definitely be different. Teddy, would you like me to read the second pillar?
Yeah, please go ahead. Those are great. This is the essence of the project.
Yeah, second one is human freedom. Every human is born with the right to be a human being. All people are born free and equal, as our topic today. Everyone has the right to choose. There can be no one and nothing on earth superior to a human, his freedom and rights. The implementation of human rights and freedoms must not violate the rights and freedoms of others. And that is the second pillar of the Creative Society.
When we talk about this one, there is a big difference also between the declarations. Of course, today is the 10th and 75th anniversary of the Declaration of Human Rights, and what we heard from the host at the very beginning, that those are declarative. And when we were in United Nations building, they told us that, this is only a declaration. Unfortunately, there is no way to observe it. So Creative Society proposal is to actually implement something that would not only be a nice declaration on paper, but would also would be absolutely under control of all people through pillar number 8, actually. But let's get to that. So human freedom and human life above profit, above money, above political power is absolutely a must. And to me, these are the essential pillars. And I was very happy to hear that people from all over the world voiced it as the number one priority, to put human life above all. Thank you.
Yes, and also we let me read the third pillar and then we'll discuss it, because I feel like this one is also declared, but unfortunately we don't practice it in our society, and this one's very important. Number 3 is human safety. No one and nothing in society has the right to create threats to the life and freedoms of a human. Every human is guaranteed free provision of essential life necessities, including food, housing, medical care, education, full social security. Scientific, industrial, and technological activities of the society should be aimed exclusively at improving the quality of human life. Guaranteed economic stability, no inflation and crisis, stable and same prices around the world, a single monetary unit, and a fixed minimal taxation or no tax. The security of human and society from any kind of threat is ensured by the unified global service that deals with emergency situations. And I think here all of it is important, but how many people today go without housing, without food, without life essentials? And today, from all of our research, we understand that today we can provide for all the people. We have enough resources to provide for all the people. We have enough technology to make sure that all people have housing, all people have food, and all people have the necessities, including clean water, which we don't see in a lot of countries today, unfortunately. So I believe that is one important aspect of this pillar, that we are able to already today in our society provide for all the people. Tali, if you want to add something.
Oh, absolutely. The three pillars you just read by the demand of people themselves. When people were asked what kind of society you want to live in, and from combined answers from 180 countries, we got this, that people want human life to be number one. What it means when legal proposals are being passed, the number one question we should have is how does it make human life better? Does it increase the quality of life? Does it put more money into people's pockets? Does it increase the safety and quality of life for every human being? And this is on the contrast, absolutely opposite of what we're seeing today, when a group of people can legally hire lobbyists to, convince certain politicians to put certain agenda to then promote their political campaign. This is impossible in the creative society format. In the creative society format, a proposal is being submitted for a public discussion, and a scientist or a group of specialists in a certain field has to show, by passing this legal proposal, in 3 months, the quality of your life will increase. And here are the metrics. This metrics will go up like this, crime will go down like this, for example, and the healthcare will increase like that. 3 months in, when the people voted for a certain project, they have to check. How did our quality of life increase? Were the metrics met? Did the specialists really, deliver it up to standards of their own expectations? And if yes, those specialists should be rewarded. That's how we're going to see real scientists, real people to praise in the society. They want to increase the quality of our lives. And if the metrics were not met, of course, we have to take a look. What exactly happened? Was it a miscalculation, or was it a deliberate intent to use the society in order to gain personal profit for somebody? And of course, in that case, there has to be a responsibility. And here's a drastic difference with the pillar number 2, when we say human freedom. Today, many humans are being declared freedoms, but very often we're seeing that there are circumstances in which constitution doesn't work, in which people can be deprived of their basic human rights. And this is not right. This is simply has not. There has to be no mechanism to go against humanity. And as they say, true democracy comes from real spread of power. So it's very good when power is spread among all people, but it's also great when they not only use it once every 4 years to give their power to somebody else, but it has to be done constantly, on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, for people to pass laws using online electoral platforms and choosing what is only best for them. And then when Olga was reading pillar number 3, human safety, which starts with no one has a right to create the threats for life and freedoms of any human. This is the essence. Like, for example, there is a hazard of a wildfire somewhere in Canada. People should be evacuated from the regions in advance. And it doesn't matter how much it's going to cost, because human life is number one priority. So when there is a wildfire starting in Lahaina, the first priority should be to evacuate the people. The first priority when there is any sort of threats to human life should be to save human lives, to protect them. And that's a drastic difference with what we're seeing today. If we keep on reading this, it says scientific, industrial, and technological activities of society should be aimed exclusively at improving the quality of human life. And what we are seeing today, the brilliant, the best people, the best scientists of our society, in each country work in closed facilities, in top secret military facilities, developing weapons against human life. Yes, they working for their own governments, but eventually they developing new weapons against humanity. And then occasionally those technologies, when they getting old, they're gonna roll out to a general public, and we can use them for scrolling your iPhone or something like that. But eventually even artificial intelligence, even robotics are being used to train the soldiers, to train the new ways to deliver weapons of mass destruction around the world faster than their competitors. And this is absolutely unacceptable. This is not the way we're going to survive as a humanity, simply. It's a drastic difference with what we're seeing right now. I'm seeing our technical team really playing with the Zoom over there, making morale really shy, but okay. Guys, when we're talking about technological potential, right, we have a great science right now. It's developed on a very good level, but it's separated. Our best scientists are divided. And there is no way to unify scientists and make them sit around one table in today's society because each country has their top secret intelligence. Those people sign the papers that they have no right to disclose secrets of their country and so on. This is simply not in the interest of us as a society, as a human civilization. We need to get those scientists around one table. And for that, we have to introduce absolutely new framework, as we said, put human life first, and implement as a legal law, as a law worldwide, that scientific potential can only be used to improve quality of our life. What it means in real life, for example, when the tragedy happened in Lahaina, Hawaii, the most equipped military base was only 30 minutes flight from there, and nobody came in 3 days. They only showed up in 3 days, and only to help to collect the bodies of the people who suffocate from the wildfire or their bodies turned into ash. Unfortunately, this is the reality, that our military is not even trained to save people. What we're seeing right now, that all the armies around the world exist for one purpose, to destroy our budgets and create illusion of safety. And there is a drastic difference with the proposal of the Creative Society, because what Creative Society, pillar number 3, says that there should be one unified global service that would ensure safety from any kind of threats and ensure that this one unified global emergency service reacts with no need to sign papers. Because, for example, when earthquake happened in Turkey in the beginning of this year, it took about 3 to 4 days for the first responders from California to obtain a permit and fly to Turkey. By the end of 3 days, most people under the rubble were already, unfortunately, breathless. They only again showed up only to help collect the bodies. The very same thing happened in Libya when there was a tragic flood when 20,000 people went missing. They confirmed 11,000 lethal, unfortunately, consequences. And unfortunately, this is the rule. This is not exception. This is the rule. When earthquakes happen 3 times in a row, devastating earthquakes in Afghanistan, nobody sent help to Afghanistan in October and November this year. And even Afghani government, they say, whenever we have a military conflict, we get billions of dollars. When we had a real tragedy and thousands of people were under the rubble of destroyed homes, nobody even sent any help. The very same thing happened in Morocco in this year, and so on. So we can count this endless examples, and we can see even in Acapulco, Mexico, even in fancy resorts which are being destroyed by hurricanes, there is no framework worldwide to counter these consequences. What we're seeing is that there is a lot of talking about this, there is a lot of conferences, billions of dollars are spent on flights, on fancy resorts for politicians, for people who talk nicely but never deliver anything in practice. In 30 years of fight against anthropogenic emissions and so on, we're only seeing those rising. We're only seeing the pollution of the ocean with microplastic rising. We never see any real practical steps taken to clean up the oceans, for example, because that is simply not profitable. Technologies to clean up the air and actually provide clean water for those who are in need do exist today, but it's not profitable to implement those. And there is a drastic difference with implementation of 8 pillars of the Creative Society in legal framework, because this provides a legal foundation to implement these technologies. Because if human life is number one value, it doesn't matter how much it's going to cost us. For society, if that's beneficial for humans, if that's beneficial for our children, we're going to implement these technologies. So thank you, Olga, for reading those. And it has been, I think, eye-opening for the people who are seeing this for the first time.
Yes, let's go to number 4.
Absolutely.
Number 4 is transparency and openness of information for all. And it states that every human has the right to receive reliable information about the movement and distribution of public funds. each human has access to information about the status of implementation of the society's decisions. The mass media belongs exclusively to society and reflect information truthfully, openly, and honestly. How much, imagine that mass media belongs to the people and can only give us truthful, honest, and information. Can you imagine how much that would change our world? That's incredible, because even today you see a lot of people they don't know what to believe. They don't know what channel to believe. You turn one station on, it tells you one thing. You turn the other station on and it tells you something else. So today we can see that mass media is definitely struggling with giving us reliable information. And in the Creative Society, as the pillar number 4 states, we should all get truthful and honest information, as well as we should see distribution of funds. Where is our money going? It needs to be open and transparent, and there's nothing wrong with that. If we're paying for something, we need to see what it's being spent on. I mean, in my mind, it's normal. Why should we not see where our money is going? I think everybody agrees. I'll go to number 5.
Well, it's
Number
a
5.
no-brainer, really. And let me just comment a little bit, because for those who are tuning in and they thinking, how is it that mass media would belong not to this billionaire or that billionaire, but to the society in general? Is it even possible? It's not only possible, it's the only option for us to actually receive reliable information. Something that has been brought up by the host at the very beginning, that we have this fake news, this misinformation issue. It's because every media belongs to certain people who are interested, who not only having business of this news outlet, but they also sponsor in certain political parties. They also invest in certain stock market assets, and they also have side businesses. So of course they're going to use their assets, their media outlets, which belong to only like 2 or 3 companies. I think all the US media belong to eventually to trust funds. They going to use them to increase their political influence, increase their financial strength, and so on. And this is normal in the consumerist format of the society, where we humans are determined to consume each other, to get on the top of the pyramid of power, strength, because that is the number 1 value. So what is the proposal of the Creative Society? On legal level, to put human life as number 1 value. And then everything changes. Then we can, on legal framework, we can say that media must belong to society exclusively. There should be no hidden agenda. There should be no hidden reports to the directors of the news outlets or the newspapers, to their journalist itself. They have to work with one purpose, to bring truthful information. And if even somebody is, for example, doing a really great job as a journalist, they should be rewarded. If, for example, we are seeing that something occurred when the news published something against this rule, they tried to trick the society. Again, there should be responsibility. People would take much more responsible approach to publishing information. And of course, when people would be able to receive truthful information about the distribution of funds, which is the most important thing, because governments, they don't have money. The only money they have is the one they take from us, from population. But for some reason, when it gets to their hands, they say, oh, we have this secret military project over here. You shouldn't know where those money went. Then we know how many times even the head of the Pentagon was saying, we cannot find out where $2 trillion, they just disappeared. We have different plugs in the computers. We cannot really connect those computers and see where the money goes. And then the very next day, the whole building burned in which those computers were. And we never were able to trace those. Well, today, with the electronic devices, with internet, it's absolutely possible to each human being to go online and see, oh, I actually paid for a new pavement in my city. I want to see how much it cost, what kind of materials were used, and how long it's going to last. And if that payment lasts that long, that means that's a good company. They should be our contractors and suppliers for way longer. And if not, we should probably look into it. And it will be very easy to trace any kind of, corruption, briberies, and so on with electronic systems. Today, it's all possible. The thing is, it's not being implemented. Why? Because again, transparency and openness of information is not our top priority. But that's only until we actually create demand to implement what Olga was reading on the legal level. Thank you. And we can move to pillar number 5.
Thank you. Number 5 is the creative ideology. Ideology should be aimed at popularizing the best human qualities and stopping everything that is directed against the human. The main priority is the priority of humanity, high spiritual and moral aspirations of a human, humanness, virtue, mutual respect, and strengthening of friendship. Creating conditions for the development and education of a human with a capital H, cultivating moral values in each person in society. Prohibition of propaganda of violence, condemnation, and denunciation of any form of division, aggression, and anti-humane manifestations. And this is what we're definitely lacking today.
Oh, absolutely. And we can start from media. Whenever you turn on those media outlets, what they're gonna show you is violent news, violent TV shows. They're gonna show how people curse at each other, how people use force against each other, because that brings ratings, that brings us a lot of news, so we can sell more expensive commercials and really gain more money, which is number one value. And in creative society, that is a drastic difference. For somebody to violate in this principle, for somebody to propagate violence and show this as an example for us to follow, creating a TV show in which one person punches each other in the face, and then we all, our children, watching it, and in their brain, this becomes a pattern, which then is going to be replicated. So for doing something like that, those who came up with such TV show should be forced to wash toilets publicly for 3 months and stream it on their TV show. Yes, this would drop their ratings and this would drop their advertisement sales. But no other TV show would ever, come up with an idea of propagating violence. And this is a great example of how we can popularize really positive examples of friendship, of humanness, and of high moral standards, which are basically very natural for all kinds of cultures and nations. This is something that should be our natural state of mind, being respectful, being polite, and if those things wouldn't be propagated so much on TV today, I'm talking about negative things, we would not see them in our life. And this should be on legal level. This should be something that is legally is a must, is a law. In not only my opinion, but in opinion of millions of people who spoke up about this pillar when they were questioning what kind of society do you want to live in.
Absolutely. Imagine how much even our kids, we have so many issues in schools today, how much better it would be. Okay, number 6 is development of personality. Every person in the creative society has the right to comprehensive development and personal fulfillment. Education should be free and equally accessible to all, creating conditions and expanding opportunities for a human to implement his or her creative abilities and talents. And of course, it would be incredible if education would be free and accessible to all, and that all of us could not only do the jobs that we do because, maybe they pay a lot, or that's what, we didn't even go to school, but that's what we're doing, but actually do something that we truly love and make sure that we can, live well on those resources, on that money. And that would be incredible that our kids could actually, realize all their talents and potential. So that's number 6. I don't know if you want to add, we have 2 more pillars, or I should move on to the next.
Oh, I think this one is essential, because what is the education is pointed today? It's pointed at creating the most possible profit for those who are involved into the system. This is why we're seeing the tuition going hundreds, thousands of dollars, and people have to work, slave away for the rest of their lives to pay off the loans, the students' loans they took, which eventually was like $360,000, which they never have seen in their lives. They spend it, and then often there is a trouble because another recession is around to even find job to pay the debt off. And when we're seeing that the progression of the tuition increase comparing to the regular median price of income, the salary, we're seeing that progressed so much faster because the whole system was interested in creating more debts, creating more money, creating more profit on this. But when it comes to actual quality of education, we can see a decrease. This is a dramatic difference. We're seeing more and more people, even in the Silicon Valley, coming from India, coming from China, coming from Russia, and that's a very comfortable system. You create a very attractive image, and instead of educating your own population, you just steal the brains from other countries. And now with an economic collapse in Europe, with the implementation of green energy technologies, the whole industry is collapsing, we're seeing a new wave of very smart people moving here. So for those who are ruling the system, they say it doesn't make sense to actually invest. People gonna still keep on taking these loans because we provide them, and they still gonna be having to pay off those debts. And that's a absolutely inhumane consumerist approach to life and to education, which should cease to exist. These debts have to be cancelled. They have to be written off, not only on personal level, but also on state level and on worldwide level, because there is no mathematical model to pay them off. It's simply impossible. And that is for the system has to be reset. The question is whether it's going to be reset as an uncontrollable collapse, or whether it's going to be by the demand of people with the implementation of a new stable economy and educational system. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And this next one is actually the topic of why we're here today. Then pillar number 7 is justice and equality. And it states that all natural resources belong to humans and are fairly distributed among all people. Monopolization of resources and their irrational use is prohibited. These resources are fairly distributed among the citizens of the entire earth. A human is guaranteed employment if he or she so desires. Pay for an identical position, especially specialty or profession, should be same all over the world. Everyone has the right to private property and income, however, within the limits of the individual's capitalization amount set by society.
And this is one of the most important things to implement, of course, that natural resources have to belong to people, not only according to the Constitution, because every Constitution says it belongs to us, but only until somebody took them out of the ground. And then it belongs to the company, and we have to buy it from the company, where having essential utilities is a basic human right. They have to be provided for every human being. And when it comes to the worldwide, because this is something that, like natural resources, right? One country has one thing, another country has something else. Right now, we're unified. We live in already globalized economy, but we're separated. We have these different rooms. Each country sets their own taxation for one sort of even resource to travel through the world. It takes multiple taxations, it takes multiple borders cross, and so eventually by the time it gets to the end customer, we're not even tripling, we are quadrupling the price of the very same resource. And that doesn't make sense. It just economically does not make sense. And the whole economy can be calculated in the way to create a fair distribution of resources and calculate through how much it costs to deliver certain goods to another part of the world. But for example, if bananas grow in Ecuador and they need them in Kamchatka in Russia, from Kamchatka they can bring something else. And then eventually we can calculate how much would it cost to actually create the same equal prices around the world, equal pay for the equal jobs around the world. So people would not have to migrate from one country to another only to get raise in salary and so on. They can still travel if they want to live somewhere else. And when it comes to the rights to private property, this is very important because some people would say, oh, these ideas, they sound like communism. No, there is a huge difference. Private property is every human's right. Also, we have to start bringing up discussion publicly. How much wealth is enough per person? Because, for example, there is nothing that money can buy beyond $10 million. You're making $10 million or 20 or 30, your quality of life will not increase. You can buy hundreds of mansions, but you're only going to live in one. You can buy hundreds of cars, you're only going to live in one. You can buy multiple fridges with food, but you can only eat as much as your stomach can handle in one time. So how much is actually enough for people to live wealthy, but not being able to use their money for evil doing? As we're seeing today, when people start buying governments, buying politicians, orchestrating revolutions in other countries, and playing God, right? The God complex, arrogance syndrome. This is something that should be prohibited on legal level by setting a limit to the personal wealth per family. Suggested amount is $10 million per family, but of course it has to be up to public discussion. It has to be an open discussion. We have to set it a trend to start discussing this openly, because for now I'm not hearing people openly saying this. Yes, they talk in academia, but this is not a part of public discussion. And what is very important, this eliminates this question about, oh, this billionaire avoids paying taxes, they have a loophole, they have a second office in Dublin, Ireland, they have some kind of offshore company in there, they like money laundering through tens of islands in the Pacific Ocean, not to pay taxes. This simply equalizes $10 million. Everything beyond that goes for the purpose of improving quality of life for the humanity. And that still sets a trend for competition. Who will create more wealth for the humanity? We're still going to praise the very same people, the most successful people, but not as ones who stole the most money from society, but the ones who contributed the most to the development of humankind. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then the last pillar, pillar number 8, is actually self-governing society. The concept of power in the creative society is absent, since the responsibility for society as a whole, its development, living conditions, and harmonious format lies with each person. Everyone has the right to participate in the management of the affairs of the creative society and in the adoption of laws aimed at improving human life. The solution of socially important, socially significant, and economic issues that affect the quality of human lives is submitted for public discussion and voting referendum. And, this is a very important concept, because today all the constitutions say that, people have the power, but unfortunately today in society we see a different thing, because if people actually had the power, then people themselves would never create negative conditions for their livelihood. We would all live in peace, safety, just what people want, and just how human nature is. And we see that unfortunately that we delegate our power today to a certain individual or to a certain group of individuals that make decisions for us, and maybe they promise us one thing, but then in actuality we don't see anything that we're being promised. So if actually power belonged to all the people, and each person could make a decision that we would never vote. For example, I would never vote on something that would make my life worse. Why would I want to do that? Of course, I would only vote on something that would make my life, my child's life, better. So that is why self-governing should be implemented worldwide, and that is what the Creative Society would provide.
Absolutely. That this is very American idea, because one thing that Ronald Reagan was talking at his election in 1967, when he became a governor of California, he was talking about self-governing society, and he was using the term creative society to describe it. And one thing he said, many people saying that people cannot self-govern. When I'm going to ask them, if you say that all people are unable to govern themselves, then how is any of us capable of govern others? And no one was able to answer that question back then, and no one is able to answer this question today. But today with technologies, we have an advantage. We have for the first time technological capabilities and capacities to use smartphone to actually pass the decisions. And if you consider the amount of time people use them today for useless discussions, did you hear how this politician called that politician at their debates yesterday? oh my gosh, they call each other corrupt. Well, they compete in who is more corrupt. Which political party, whose personal relationship of which candidate was with which celebrity, and so on. If we take 1/10 of that waste of time, that just basically our attention time goes down the drain, and use it to study the legal proposals that would be proposed on the online electoral platform, and considering the thing that today, whenever we go to vote, it's really hard to even make sense of what is written on the paper. You're saying that they making proposal 123, one say vote yes, others say vote no, and they have campaigns for each one of them. And from reading it, you really cannot make sense what they're trying to say. So in creative society with proposal, the language and the putting of certain proposal would be simple, because it's pointed at human, not to trick people to get some kind of new ease for taxation of certain corporation. No, to create better conditions for human life, because doing opposite is prohibited by the law, and that is a drastic difference. With implementation of online voting platform and the first pillar of the creative society, that people would only vote for what is beneficial to every human being, we can actually make a drastic difference and evolve, because democracy was supposed to evolve. It was never set in stone as something that couldn't develop. Today we have all the capabilities, and even to take the declaration that is 75 years old and apparently not working too well, because we're on the brink of third world war constantly, and we are seeing the rise and threat of climatic events. People should realize that besides climate, we don't actually have any enemies. We don't have enemies among other people, and we are one single human family. If we unify based on one principle, human value, and implement these 8 pillars, basically what all people want, according to the surveys, we can build a society in which we can forget about all the crises, economic crisis, wars, and so on, once and for good. Thank you so much for having us today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Well, this was really amazing. I want to thank both of you for I think those pillars were really vital. As a member of the Baha'i community, I agree with every single one of them. And so, in fact, if not identical. And so therefore, it is one thing now to, so you need to now, obviously, I believe in promoting each other. So how do people become part of your society, number one? B, how are they funded? C, I'm assuming that they're a 501c3 and part of United Nations. And you said 180 countries. Your membership covers 180 countries. Very impressive. And so if you can just sort of put in the chat room the link on if anybody is, and does it cost money to join, right? And does it have monthly support? Because I know you're offering everything free to the world. And so somewhere the money is going to have to come from to offer everything free, right? So if you could put in the chat room contact information, yes, and maybe Olga, both of you can just address it, and I'm just going to mute myself for a minute and then open up to questions.
Yes, it's a good question, because we get asked that a lot. And who funds the Creative Society Project, you will ask. And today, all actions and activities within the framework of the Creative Society Project are carried out solely by the project participants themselves, on their initiative, by their choice and willingness, and at the expense of their own funds. Meaning, we do not collect any money. We do not ask for money. And people themselves, once they learn about the project, they understand its importance. And then when they learn the benefits, they understand that this is exactly what we need. This is exactly what would solve all the global issues we have in the world today. And they start acting. They start informing people about the Creative Society. They start going on shows. They start organizing events in their cities, printing brochures, something else. So all the initiatives are carried out by our volunteers, which are amazing worldwide. millions of people from around the world. So we do not collect any funds, and of course, all our volunteers act entirely within the legal framework and within the legal framework of their country. That is the only requirement we ask for, definitely. So that's it. We are to join. Of course, there's if you know about the Creative Society and you're sharing this information and you understand how valuable and important it is, you're already a participant of the Creative Society. We do not collect any information from anyone. So you are a participant if you're sharing, if you're talking about it, if you're organizing events, if you're acting. You know, the most important thing today is to take action. That is number one value. If we want to see a better world, if we want to see unification, if we want to see our kids to live in a better future, for us to have a better future, we need to take action. And that is what the Creative Society participants do today. They take action on their own initiatives, at their own time. Nobody asks them to do anything. They do it because they love humanity. And you know, I wanted to also share a quote since we're talking about humanity, and this is a good one and kind of represents the Creative Society and the topic. And it is Martin Luther King Jr. who said that life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? And I think that sums it up. So, and we're open to questions.
Okay. I have here Dr. Perkins next to me, and he's one of our board members on the Unity Museum. And he's got some questions. Go for it.
It's not so much a question, it's an observation. Tomorrow, here in Seattle, the popular Church of Scientology of Washington State, they're hosting an event in celebration of human rights. They host this event annually. And in 2021, I was their featured guest speaker for this banquet. It was Nelson Mandela's celebration. And it was outstanding. And though I'm not a Scientologist, but they do a lot of good in Washington, Western Washington, and here in Seattle. So my question is, what difference? There's so many. First of all, there's so many fragmented groups that with this ideal of a new world, and the Church of Scientology also has this vision of a one world. So my question is, are you all, and so are the Baha'i, the platform that Ms. Zabina Banez is part of, my question is, do you all have any connections with the Church of Scientology and their mission for this one world vision?
You know, it's a good question. Thank you for that. So what's different about the Creative Society? It's a platform for unification of all people. So we have members that are from Scientology. We have a lot from Baha'i. We actually visited a lot of Baha'i places of worship, and we unite all people. So it's a platform for unification. So it doesn't matter whether you're an atheist, what religion you are, what political party you represent, what culture you're from, what country you're from. Creative Society is a platform for unification of all people. And we don't talk about the fact that you should only practice one thing, or you should do this and not that. No, you can practice whatever it is that you're practicing or not practicing, and we don't care, because we're uniting on one concept, that we're all human beings, and we just want to live in a better future. And we just want our kids to have a better world. And that is our motivation, and that's what we're striving for. So yes, we do have people from Scientology that are part of the Creative Society, but we're not, we don't go one way or the other. We only unite on the fact that we're human beings.
Okay, I have a question then, and I think I know the answer, but obviously, you're an amazing organization. Do you have like exhibits and conferences and international dialogue? Regular, how old is your organization?
Yes, thank you. So we've been doing the surveys we've been doing for over a decade to get to the Creative Society itself. We needed to do research first. So we wanted, not only did we do a world biggest global survey, but we also studied all religions, all cultures, all history to make sure that we don't repeat what didn't work in the past. We wanted to make sure that Creative Society is something that will definitely, is a formative society that will work in the future. We have a platform that we have Creative Society Television, where we have international dialogue. We've done live conversations before. We've done discussions before with people from all over the world. We have translations to over 150 languages, simultaneous translation. All this is done by volunteers. So we've talked to different cultures. We've studied all religions. If you look at our website, we've had forums, conferences about everything. We studied each religion and we had a forum on it to see what did our prophets want us to have. We've talked about climate. We've talked about ecology. We have talked to all the professors that you can imagine in all the fields, economy, climate, social issues, doctors, lawyers. We've had them on only to see what is it that unites all people, and we are the platform for unification of all people. And we understand that all people speak the same language. They just want to live in peace, safety, have, and practice what they want to practice.
Totally get it.
Definitely,
Yeah.
if
In
you go
addition to
into
that, I would like to
society,
say that on December 2nd, we had the international online conference called Global Crisis, the Responsibility. And in this conference, we showed some pretty dramatic information about the rise of extreme climatic events in the past 30 years. The discussion on this topic has been, many things for political reasons have been left out of the discussion. For example, in 2010, when geologists showed the proof that we have a major shift in the core of our planet, that flows of extremely hot magma rise into the surface, melting icebergs from below, melting the ice sheets from below, that was not part, that was first of all not taken seriously because it was not so obvious back then, and second of all, it was not any action was taken because everybody were too concerned about taxation on CO2 emissions. So right now, when we're seeing a drastic change, where for the first time we have Category 5 hurricanes originating in all 5 basins of the world ocean for the first time, when we have multiple 7.4 and magnitude 7.5 earthquakes all over the world in multiple places, we're seeing that there should be much more requests. And when we talking about Creative Society, this is the only platform to framework to actually unify best scientists that are currently to get them around one table and start solving the only problem we have as humanity. It's how to survive the upcoming rise of extreme climatic events, which arise not with linear but with exponential progression, which means that in 2024, 2025, we're not going to see a linear increase. We're going to see exponential increase in the number of natural disasters and catastrophes.
Yeah.
This is not a process of doom and gloom. This is simple math, simple statistics, which have been shown. I encourage everyone to check creativesociety.com and watch for yourself what did the scientists have to say on this topic. And then this is very different from any sort of what the gentleman brought up. How is it different from all the I have many friends among Jehovah's Witnesses. They say, okay, come on, tell you with your Creative Society, come become Jehovah's Witness. We have 8 million of Jehovah's Witnesses. Why not to unite on this platform? And we will never be able to unify on religious basis, on political, on national, because that's exclusive. That excludes authors who did not subscribe to this certain ideology. What is important about the Creative Society is that this is a legal framework which is very simple. It's 8 pillars which we have just discussed. So it's to put human life above profit, above money, above political power, and implement self-governing online platform on which people will only vote for the laws which increase quality of every human life and give people absolute freedom, whether you're a Muslim, whether you're a Christian, whether you're a Buddhist, or it doesn't matter what's your skin color, what's your religion, what's your national background. Those are basic human rights which are embedded in all cultures. They are universal for all people. And this is also very important to understand for participants of different religions that these values align with the core values of their tradition. And this is why we're seeing our Muslim participants. They had a conference called Global Crisis, the Dream of Prophet Muhammad. Because they wanted to show that Creative Society proposal is exactly what was said. We had our Christian participant creating a conference, who is Jesus Christ to us, Creative Society, because it shows that according to his words, this is the world we were supposed to build. We were not supposed to do crusades and turn Christianity into bloodiest religion of all time with all the bloodshed. It was supposed to build. And we had our Hebrew participants from Israel who also created a conference, Creative Society, the mission of the chosen people, which shows that it completely aligns with Israeli historical and cultural values. So this is something universal, and this has nothing to do with religion itself, but on the other hand, the values brought up in Creative Society absolutely align with cultural and historic heritage of all nations and cultures around the world.
I think we have a question here from Dr. Perkins.
And it's also a comment from some of the sound bites I've heard since I've been in here this afternoon. What makes me so worried, being from Rural Southern Baptist Christian, and my family members were very devoted Christian Baptists to the Bible, and when I look at the indicators of the last days and times that Jesus talked about in the Bible, for the last days of time, there'll be earthquakes in diverse places. Children will be disobedient to parents. Chaos everywhere. And these are the indicators that I see today of so much social dislocation of human beings. So here's a platform that I'm just not being introduced to, that I was not aware of until Sabina introduced me. And that's why I showed up. I wanted to see, because as an analyst. But my question is, how do we bring the good together? How do we unite with these different platforms who want to save humanity? Because when I listen to what's going on over there in the Middle East, what's going on over there with the situation that's currently evolving in Jerusalem and Iran and the United States and Russia, these are indicators of concern. Because if they start throwing these bombs out, we all better, what are we going to do about it? How can we, as those who are concerned human beings, create such an intervention that will stop the madness? That is the challenge right there. How do we unite to stop this madness, global greed, global madness that's causing a lot of people's lives to be
legally,
destroyed?
not just in Kumbaya. So, the grassroots sort of say, yeah, we like all that. We want everything free. But legally, and I'm thinking about the International Criminal Justice System on The Hague, but legally, how do we plan to bring those amazing ideas?
Well, let me interject this too, Ms. Nassau, why it's on my mind, so I don't lose this chain of thought.
Yeah.
Desmond Tutu was a great intermediary. When South Africa gave up the control and Nelson Mandela got elected president, Desmond Tutu launched the reconciliation movement in order to bring some healing together. So I think we can learn a lot of lesson about what is reconciliation. How can we start as a human race? Because that's what it's about. Now, it's not an individual nation issue. It's a human race global issue. And how can we, as a concerned class, people, groups, bring about some kind of reconciliation movement that's going to start the healing process in order to achieve those objectives, to save the world? So that's the question right there. Is there a reconciliation?
Thank you so much. And that is the biggest question. And this is what we've been talking about the whole time. This is the problem of the human race. This is the problem of all humanity. And we are here to unite the whole humanity to improve the living conditions. And I also just want to say this one quote, because I think it also talks a lot about what we're talking about. And it's by Edmund Burke. And he said, the only thing necessary for triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And that is what we see today. We see so many people that are not acting. And we see that the only, the evil, all the bad that's going on in the world, those are the people that are the loudest. That's what we see in the media. That's what we see on TV. And unfortunately, the good people are sitting and not doing anything. And we are talking about the fact that we need to unite on a peaceful and legal level, as we just mentioned, and we need to create a demand. So people need to start, first of all, sharing information about the Creative Society. That's what we talk about. This is a platform for people to unite in one goal, to make better conditions. Again, we're all one human race. We're all humanity, and we're all one family. And we need to start talking. We need to start speaking up. We need to start sharing information that this platform exists. We need to create a demand. Once we have a demand from people from all around the world, we will be able to implement the Creative Society legally and peacefully. Again, we are not calling for a revolution. We can see that revolutions do not work. We finally, for the first time, need an evolution. We need a evolution of humanity to finally come a global unified civilization. And that is what we need. That is what we strive for. And we cannot support
where do you
any
legally
agenda.
do you take it to? Legally, who do you take the ideas to? That's what I'm wondering.
So there's two steps of building the Creative Society, and it is possible. In our prior forms, we talked about it. So first, we need to create a demand. So first, all 8 billion people on the planet need to know about the Creative Society. They need to know the benefits of the Creative Society, what it stands for. And then the second stage is the world referendum. So once the majority of people in all countries of the world support the Creative Society, then a world referendum will be prepared and held to adopt the Creative Society model and also the 8 foundations into the constitutions of all countries. And not only that, but also the voting platform needs to be adopted as well, so that we can have self-governing society and openness of information. We actually covered all this information in detail. We talked to lawyers, we talked to people to see if it's possible and how can it be implemented. And we talked about it in our prior forums as well and conferences. So
one of the things that another observation that's quite disturbing when I was listening to the gentleman talk, and he talked about misinformation, and he talked about education and our youth. One of the things that I'm forever explaining to people is that misinformation and disinformation are two totally different concepts. If you get a newspaper with a misprint, that's misinformation. They turn around and reprint it and straighten it out. But disinformation is just outright lies. So Orwell in 1984, one of the things that he talked about was how to keep a society confused. Language, the media, newspeak was the vehicle that they kept misinformation and disinformation to keep people confused. In the schools, our young people are being confused with a bombardment of information that which one is, will the real information please stand up, otherwise metaphorically. So how do we get the concepts and to be interjected to break up this barrage of confusion and misinformation that disinformation really is what it is, that is basically confusing people as to which direction to turn. You see, when you have this, it's a kaleidoscope. How do we start to narrow this? These are complex issues that we need think tanks. And I still believe the United Nations is a vehicle that can be used, it needs to be strengthened, needs to be reborn in a sense. We need innovation in the United Nations.
Federation.
Yes. So that's basically some of my concerns. And I'm a hush now. You hear, so we can get some response.
yeah, it's a really good question, and we noticed it too. And you say it correctly, that it's the language and the wording and everything else, and we had a good example. Sometimes I don't know, I vote. You go to vote for your city or for, they have different proposals, and you read them and you're like, I consider myself educated. You know, I went to a university. Sometimes I read it, I don't even know what it's saying. So I ask other people, I'm like, did you know what this says? And they're like, we have no idea. You read scientific papers. You have no, unless you're a scientist, studied that thing, you have no idea what those papers are saying. You have no idea what they did research on and whether they did research or not. It's not language that a regular person would understand unless you're in this field. And so what we believe needs to be done and is everything needs to be put in simple language for all the people to understand. For example, if you look at our website, everything is, of course, you know, created by the lawyers. Everybody look through this to make sure everything is legal, but everything is put in the language that you and I can understand. Everybody can understand. If you look at the 8 foundations, they're very simple. If we do self-governing, it must be the language that a person can understand. Do I want to build a road? Do I want to build a playground? I know it's a simple example, but still, everything needs to be done for people. And that is one of the things that I think we are lacking today is the language, is in disinformation, as you say. Tali, I don't know, maybe you want to add something and then we can move on.
Yes, absolutely. Deliberate misinformation, which is disinformation on purpose, will exist until it's going to be profitable for small groups of people. As long as it's going to be profitable to create conditions for wars, we're going to see wars existing, because every time a new war conflict appears, somebody's stock on stock market goes up. It's skyrocketing. And you know, if that conflict wouldn't exist, you know, there are certain people who would be interested in creating that conflict because they're profiteering of it. So we created conditions in our society. We all live and support format of this society in which creation of conflicts is very profitable, in which of course, we have United Nations and we have multiple very good nonprofits inside of it. Some of them fight in water supplies, like in Africa. Some of them fight in hunger, and we're seeing their amount of people working in those organizations expands with every year. Their budgets expanding every year, and the problem itself is not shrinking. It's growing every year. More and more people, homeless, hungry, do not have access to water, involved into military conflicts, and so on. And then when we, with Creative Society, started looking at the very core of it, we saw that the very same system, the system itself, is working to create problem. Because when people who fight in problem will solve the problem, they will be not needed in this society. They will deprive themselves of source of income. If they solve the hunger problem, what is people gonna do? If there is a police department in Seattle that solved all the crimes and there are no more criminals, no more broken windows and so on, they're not gonna get raised. The city is gonna say, well, we don't need that many police officers. We'll take a look. We don't have crime in this area. So people will be punished for doing their job well. And this is the absurdity of consumerist format of the society. So with Creative Society, we're talking about conditions in which it will be in the best people's interest to solve the issues, not to become these parasites that are parasiting on the issue itself. As we're seeing today, unfortunately, with all the respect to all the bodies of the United Nations and all of the nonprofits around the world, if their nonprofit will stop fighting homelessness, they will stop getting funds from and some grants that they have been receiving and so on. We can cherry pick every single body of good legislative body, and we all gonna stuck with this bureaucracy with growing amount of people who take in resources, and we can easily solve this issue. And for example, let's take a military complex. A lot of people, not only scientists but engineers and so on, working for Boeing in Seattle, for example, Lockheed Martin, other companies, very good talented people. Let's say we implement self-governance society, and the top top priority is developing not military but other kind of inventions which would improve quality of life. Well, first of all, because human life is number one value, we have to take care of these people, provide them universal basic income, make sure that none of them goes without a job, without ability to pay bills, and so on. That is a responsible approach which is suggested by the Creative Society. When it comes to providing water, there are atmospheric water generators which have been available for decades, but they're not being used. In Flint, Michigan, when Moses West, inventor from Texas, brought that machine and started giving away water for free for people of Flint, the machine got vandalized. And when he got asked who, he said, I don't know who that made, but I know that that machine standing here was hurting somebody's income, somebody who was selling water. And he says, I'm not gonna speculate on who did this, but I know that in current format of society, providing goods for free will hurt somebody's pockets. So we're talking about the systemic change in here, and we're talking about very simple thing, in fact, put human life first, not only as declaration, but as a legal framework, and exclude conditions for corruption, exclude conditions for bribery, exclude conditions for abuse of resources. Today's technologies allow us to do this. You know, Chilean experiment was in 1971 when they tried to build the first economy using CyberSyn, the algorithm that was supposed to calculate through how much resources needed here and there. And back then, because it was socialist experiment versus Americans, what they received was a revolution, and the experiment was destroyed. But back then, it was possible to create an AI-based economy on two computers which were less powerful than your cell phone. So the question I'm asking is, how is it that today we have all the computing power and AI, but it's not used to calculate through the model of economy, which would not have crisis, which would not have inflation, which would not have increase of price and devaluation of currency? Because this all possible, but this is not a part of public discussion. So with Creative Society International online forums, we're saying that at current rate of progression of extreme climatic events, if we're not gonna start making all of it part of our public discussion today, tomorrow we're simply not going to have time to solve the issue and implement those technologies and possibilities we have today. Because every day, it's not only hundreds of thousands of people becoming climate refugees and losing their lives, we're also losing facilities, research centers, and so on. And with the tremendous floods that happened in China this year, if that's going to continue at this pace, we might lose China with all its potential and so on. And right now it's all about political feuds, but we're talking about human lives here. So it doesn't matter whether it's, as you said, we're supposed to treat each other as human beings, as citizens of one planet and of one society. And that is the key. Put human life in first place.
I want to just share that, that I'm just old enough that two friends of mine who are both long passed away, were in 1948. At that time, they had only consultative status. No, excuse me, observation status, which later on became consultative status at the United Nations level. Dr. J. Carey and Mildred Motta-Heda. I knew them personally, both of them, and I had opportunities to talk to them at great length what it was like when they first began to meet, gather, and explore. And as they shared at that time, that this is going to be a slow process, that humanity through regional and eventually global experimentation will discover for a unification of the grassroots level is what you're talking about. So you've had 10 years for this, right? And just as a Baha'i community, we've been part of the United Nations since 47, because we were at that point already there. Now, I also know that, for instance, the first female mayor of the United States was in Seattle. And she had the granddaughter of Queen Victoria. Her name was Queen Maria of Romania, who met Sam Hill, who was invited for Queen, and she was part of the signing of the Treaty of Versailles. And she discussed the signing of the League of Nations, especially women's issue at that time, because during World War I, formation of League of Nations women were very rarely ever a visible a figurehead, and Romania decided to have a woman representing their country. Okay, and she came to Seattle. Now, I feel that and I have read their biographies. We have a museum dedicated right here on the Columbia River to Queen Maria of Romania. And one thing that those dialogue, Queen Maria of Romania, by the way, was also a Baha'i, but so the dialogue has been that it'll always be a grassroots collaboration of the unification of individuals, because it will not come top down, it will always come bottom up. However, eventually, and as you said, we got to get enough of us in order to register a complaint, shall we call it that, to a global authority that will say, well, this is overwhelming. We need to make changes. Where then you have discussions. That's why I talked earlier on the Earth Summit, where for the first time you had global leaders part of getting together on what we call issues of water, issue of war, issue of communication and health and education and so on, right? I think we are still in that slow process. And I think and what I've always said, we are burning the bricks on that yellow brick road towards World Federation, because we're not in position yet to click those other red heels. We can start walking down that yellow brick road. But we need a lot of bricks, and I think everybody listening here today, everybody, and I've only been doing my own journey's been since 1969, and for me it started in Hawaii. But I'm born in World War II Germany. You want to talk to me when my city was bombed out and I was in the shelter, I was starving to death. And when my family was frightened, and my stepfather was 13 fighting under Rommel in Africa, and my grandfather was fighting in Turkey in World War I. My family lived it, for better or for worse. I'm taking full responsibility for worse. But the truth of the matter is, some of us are still alive who had family that talked about starving and talked about being underneath bombs. And we were the producers of bombs just as much as the global community. We still have eyewitnesses that have the taste of war still in their blood. And I've been shunned in England because I was an au pair with a Jewish family. And I understood why I was shunned. And unless you all have gone through, stood in front of somebody that shunned you, and that didn't want to breathe the same air that you're breathing, unless you've experienced that, unless you experience starvation and see your children don't have enough food, so you don't eat and your grandmother doesn't eat because this child needs to survive. That's my history. And I think all of us here, I want to make sure that we stay what I call realistic and not just have a big circle. Oh, wouldn't it, you know what I'm saying? I'm always worried on Human Rights Day where I see people get together, kumbaya, kumbaya, we all need to, you know what I mean? And then you got these idealistic theories, but I need to see the legal, officially organized lines of service and action that culminate in an outcome. And so I'm not about the s'mores and the fireplace and the guitars. You know what I'm saying? I am about what ultimately will produce a vote that culminates in change. And I like to think that your organization, well, 10 years, so it's been, it's a beginning. We need organizations that do this work everywhere, in every neighborhood. And so I congratulate you for doing a wonderful job in presenting an opportunity for people of many faiths, many backgrounds, many races, many genders, right? That we've just got to start doing that. But it's got to have a legal place where you can put your complaint, not just in a circle around the fireplace, right? So, okay. Sorry about that.
Thank you very much. And, thank you for sharing your story. I mean, I grew up in the Soviet Union, and I think most of us here that, not most of us, but of course, same situation, didn't have food, didn't have clothes, of course, mother and grandma always chose who to feed, either to feed, me because I was little, or to feed themselves. So same situation. And, no child should go through this. No, nobody should have those conditions. And, the saddest thing today is that we have the resources to feed everyone, to provide free water for everybody. Our planet is so amazing that we have enough resources, we have enough land, we have enough technologies to even build houses. They're 3D. Right now they're building in China, for example. I think they built a hospital in 10 days. Come on, that's incredible. We can make sure every single person, every single child has a home. Everybody has food, water. Why aren't we living like this? And like you said, legally, peacefully, let's unite. Let's all unite together. And that's what we need today. And it's incredible to have this discussion.
Speaking of feeding, right? So we have one of the exhibits here, and food production certainly is a source of concern, water and food, right? However, and this is where I realistically say, there right now, all the flavors on earth have been invented and they have been submitted. And they got 3D printing right now, 3D printing, salmon fillets, pizzas, they're 3D printing food. What we don't have is yet a microwave oven where I can say, okay, this is the content of salmon, this is the content of steak, this is the content of noodles, this is the mixture that you have for potatoes or rice, right? So I want to go home and have a machine where I can say lobster dinner. And so I don't, and you'll say, yeah, but Sabina, you're taking away jobs from the farmer. You're taking away jobs. That's the old argument that we just had a while ago. When you reinvent, you also take away, right? And so therefore, it all needs to come together with education, with healthcare, with distribution of wealth, as you mentioned earlier on, right? Because look, they're already building space station for industrial production. Around that, you'll have space cities. We are looking at a robotic age, so we need to be realistic. Where are the jobs? We're not going to go back in time. We need to go into the future with our projections. And so 3D printing is just one small, and I know what they have been producing in Israel. It's been amazing how they have literally vegetable garden in computer, growing it right in the aisles, and you can pick your lettuce right out of that vegetable garden. It's amazing what science is producing right now. And water collections, right? The connection, how we get rain out of the clouds and so on. Science is absolutely a solution. And so I think what we're talking about is social, and I hope that everybody's going to consider adding to their project a traveling unity museum that talks about these solutions in exhibits, right? Because the solutions are here. It's just the determination.
Can I make a comment on what you just said,
Yeah.
Sabina, and this young lady here, Miss Olga? One of the greatest books I ever read in my life was when I was a young activist back in the 70s in the 20th century. Was Alvin Toffler's Future. Toffler, he predicted before the coming of the millennium that as a result, our technology would change so rapidly that a lot of people will be lost by the wayside. He called it maladaptation, their inability to adapt. So my question is, when you have these platforms like the Creative Society, the Unity Museum, and a list of other Scientology worldwide platforms, how do we incrementally introduce this to people for the type of change that's necessary so they don't fall by the wayside, maladaptation. And I tell people all the time, here in Seattle, from some of my research, Seattle, like a lot of major industrial cities in the United States of America, has lost thousands and thousands of manufacturing jobs. Jobs that my father and my uncles and them used to walk to work in manufacturing firms as blue collar, gray collar, green collar working men. Those jobs no longer exist, and as a result, we have a major mental illness problem in the United States of America, and I'm sure that's elsewhere worldwide because of people's inability to adapt. Like Alvin Toffler predicted, maladaptation exists. He was so prophetic, but he was rejected because he was not PhD. I tell people all the time, college campuses, colleges are corporations today. They do not teach radical thought like when we were coming up in the 60s and 70s. So my question is, what is the process, the incremental process that the Creative Society is involved in terms of how do you introduce this change that's necessary incrementally and build on the blocks of change that would lessen the resistance of people and fears to a change?
That is an amazing question, and we've studied this question a lot, especially we started with FFGs, fuel-free generators. All people will have free energy. Where are these jobs going to go? All these people working at these jobs, gas station, all the electrical services, DTE, everything, where are they going to go? The answer is very simple, and we've started with this too. Universal basic income. Each person, regardless who you are, regardless if you work or not, your degrees, your status, each person from baby to adulthood will get an equivalent to $10,000 a month. Regardless if you work or not, you're going to get it. If you want to work, and we ask people, people say nobody's going to work. That's not true. I asked you, I said, okay, you think nobody's going to work. Will you work? And the person is like, I will work, but nobody else is going to work. I said, everyone, the people that don't want to work, trust me, today they're not working. The people that work, they're going to still work and do something for the betterment of society. So yes, in Creative Society, we're going to have all the best technologies implemented to improve human life. Like you said, we're going to have a replicator. You press a button, you get a lobster. It's absolutely possible today. We're going to have a health capsule. I mean, I'm going into the future. It sounds like science fiction, but it's not. We're going to have people that are doing hard jobs, working at factories, lifting things, doing mundane, constant works. It's not good for their bodies. I know, I work in the medical field. I see these people as my patients. They come to me, they do the same thing, shoulders, knees, hips. How many replacements do we have today? All those jobs today can be made by robots, can be made by AI. And we, the people, should be doing the jobs that we love. And again, as we read in the foundations, we should be doing things that we want for education and free and high quality. You want to go study? Great. You get UBI. You don't need to work. You don't need to worry about how you're going to feed your family. Your housing is free. Your food is free. Your utilities are free because it's all human rights and they're natural human rights. They're in our
How do you get the
Constitution.
governments to agree? How do you get, it's such a, I'm totally on your side, by the way. But in
Demand
order
of
to
the
get a
people.
paycheck, so you're going to have to pass the law by all these 200 countries that you have not just the chosen countries, but it's only going to work if it's globally. And this is what I call
Absolutely.
that yellow brick road. And this is because it means taking down a military and it's building up a global sustainable income system, right? Universal income. It's a very complex system. Yeah.
It's very simple. It's very easy. If we create a demand and people say we want this peacefully, we can transition in less than 5 years. Know this. We've studied this topic in and out. Our motivation is the climate crisis. Soon, as Hadi was saying, it's exponentially increasing. It's not, it's first it's 1 and 1, 2, then 4, then 8, then 16. Soon enough, in 2024, we're going to see the crises that are going on in the world. People are going to start looking for the solution. They're going to start thinking, what can we do? Creative society is global. It has to be global. One country itself cannot organize it. It has to be a global initiative. And again, we're talking about one human family, one united human family. And we can organize it all. We can create it all. And by human demand, look how much money we're spending on the military. Look how much money we're spending and sending to other countries. We can make sure that each person gets $10,000 a month, no problem. Plus, if we create a demand, it's not going to be an issue. And we talk about politicians like they're these foreigners, like they're these people that are up there. They're people just like you and me. They have families just like we do, and they want their families to live in a better world. They want to also live in the creative society. They want to make sure they can do something better for the society as well. And we as people just need to create a demand, and we need to say that this is our human right, and we can create a better world. There's nothing more simpler than that. It's a simple process.
And also by implementation of universal basic income, we are eliminating crime that is done out of necessity, which is a huge amount of crime that is done simply because people have nothing to lose. If you have universal basic income, you do well, you have all your stuff covered. If you're going to go out and commit a crime, you will lose everything, and you will have to work hard. But the society, that's a very good motivation not to do any crime, because society cares about you. And then, for example, for California, when a person commits a crime out of necessity and ends up in prison, it costs us, taxpayers, $85,000 to $100,000 a year to have one person in prison. So just economically, it makes sense to give this money to the people before they end up in prison to ensure that they do well and they don't have to do crimes only to provide for themselves.
Can I ask you how many members are in your organization?
That's a very good question, because people, when they ask, in my head, I think it's two things. When they say it's too little, they're going to say, oh, this company is too little to join. If we're going to say too many, they're going to say, these guys have everything covered themselves, we don't have to do. So, until 50%, 50+% of each country screams on every social media, we want creative society, and we call for a national and a global referendum to implement self-governance and human life as top value. Until that, it's not enough. And right now, we make this online events. We get millions of views across 180 countries. We have people doing translations from their own will. But we don't hear this in social media overwhelming. We don't hear this on mass media. We don't hear politicians talking about it. Politicians have been talking to us. They say, great idea, guys. We are ready to implement this on legal level as soon as we're going to see mass demand from grassroots population. As for example, I'm going to give you an example of one lady from Southampton, UK. She created a TikTok channel 2 weeks after our conference in April, which was called Global Crisis, the Reason We Out. And she started posting short clips from our conference on that TikTok channel. She had 150,000 followers in less than a month. And that means that millions and tens of millions of people found out about the idea of creative society only because of bravery and constant work of one young lady who simply wants to live better. She does not receive grants. She does not receive any benefits. She does not receive any fancy badges. But she understands that her future can be successful, can be really bright, only if this project gets implemented and if she creates demand for it from other people.
Recently, when we talk about man's nature to be greedy, to be brutal, how do we, for us visionaries, those who want a better society, how do we convince those who want to maintain status quo? And one of my concerns with the rise of this AI, we need accountability for everything, because This AI, they said they had a thing on the news yesterday about hackers. They're warning people in the news that AI can duplicate your voice, the patterns, and a lot of other things like this. Even one of the, I'm not going to mention which news channel is starting to experiment with this virtual reporter. I'm against that because I understand 1984 in the Orwellian world of this worst case scenario. How do we get accountability to move forward as a human race and to bring these other groups together and stop the madness? The accountability. How do we convince these policymakers?
Yeah, they did. In all fairness, last week, I regularly watch C-SPAN, and they took all the IA specialists, right? Pulled them together, and they met the government, met with them because they're worried about this and how to stop the bleeding. They don't really have an answer yet, and they're the first ones to admit we're in a crisis. However, there is a lot of collaboration that the concerns are global. And I think we have to give them some time to work their way through this because quantum computing is here and artificial intelligence is here, and they know that, and there's not a lot of expertise, but they had about 10, 12 experts who are working in that. And I think it just needs some global collaboration. So it's not probably not a good time to say what are the solutions because we don't know yet. However, know that at least that we have we're pushing panic buttons as we should.
I want to interject one more thing, and this is an observation everybody may not be aware of. Artificial intelligence, AI, was coined by the great visionary Herbert Simon at Carnegie Mellon University. And I met Dr. Simon before he passed when I was a graduate student at the University of Pittsburgh. He was a great man. He coined it in his book, and I can't remember the complete name of his book, but if you Google Herbert Simon, he created the concept artificial intelligence, and he would be proud that he came to vision to reality. So I just that was my last tidbit. I'm not going to say no more than that.
Well, and so it is 2:00, and I know you're probably all anxious to go and put this to an end. I want to thank, first of all, I want to thank everybody here that today. Thank you ever so much for organizing this as a volunteer for our museum to make it happen. And for a young person to be that visionary, I'm just sort of so proud of her because this is what we pray for, that our young people take charge and organize themselves and are part of your organization. And I want to thank both of you for making a wonderful presentation on very hopeful collaboration. And I know you've been at it for a decade now. I've been at it only since 1969, but on the other hand, I think we're all in this together, and we're all working on it. And I know all 8 billion Baha'is around the world every day meet on this very topic and discuss it. How can they go into the neighborhood, the street where they live, in order to make a difference? So I think we have a lot of us out there that we know that would love to collaborate and then find the legal process to the, what did you say? It's not a revolution; it's an evolution of like-mindedness. So thank both of you for a great opportunity to listen to you. And I think you left a real imprint behind, and I think many of us will check it out. I never heard of you, quite honestly, and I've been in that area of human rights for a long time. And I've only just recently came across. So thank you for coming here today.
I would like to invite you all to visit our beautiful city, the city of Seattle. It's a very multicultural, diverse city, and we would love to have you all come and visit the Unity Museum. You will find Seattle to be just one incredible place of diversity. And I wish you all would come and see our city and visit the Duwamish Longhouse and Cultural City, Chief Seattle's people, original people here. It's a
And I have downstairs a guest bedroom free of charge, so you have a place to crash anytime you are in the neighborhood.
Thank you so much. That is wonderful. Hey, you never know, we might just come. So it would be wonderful to meet you all in person too.
Yeah, it's a great
Okay,
question.
well,
Thank you so much for all the
Closing
questions,
statement.
for sharing your background and saying such thoughtful questions. We were one of the organizations who, basically probably a unique one. In 2021, way before AI, we made a conference about the upcoming threat of AI, for example, called Global Crisis. This already affects everyone, and it's interesting that today this is part of public discussion. We were warning about exponential growth, so as we saying right now about climate, and it's great to see like-minded people, very open-minded people. You really, as the city of Seattle, has been a pioneer city in many social initiatives, and we hope that Creative Society Project will be one of those initiatives which will get following in city of Seattle. And to myself, I would love to think a little bit more about when we can organize such a visit, but that would be a great thing to do. So thank you for
And we'll help you.
Yeah, we're there to support you on that. Well, okay, I think everybody is
Thank you for
ready
having
to.
us, and thank you for yes.
Happy
Bye
holidays.
bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Happy holidays. Take care. Bye bye.
Okay, there was a little echo.